Well, I think you have to know. But I don't agree.
All righty, everybody.
That's not
Good morning. I'm afternoon, actually. Sorry, evening. I don't even know what time of day it is. I want to welcome everyone to the December 18th meeting of the Town of Londonderry Masterplan Steering Committee. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. And before I roll into public comment, we do need, we have two positions that we need to appoint this evening, one being vice chair, so I would entertain a motion for those that wish to, for anyone that would like to take that role on. I will nominate Art Rugg, because he's right there and he's in my eyesight.
I'll second that.
Is there anyone else that would like to take that role? Or is everyone waiting for the secretary role? All right. All in favor of Art Rugg being appointed vice chair?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Chair votes in the affirmative. Thank you, Mr. Rugg. All right, now I will entertain motions for secretary. This is an incredibly exciting job and really important. They help me a lot, and we can also, kind of leverage, technologies to kind of do our minutes. So I would be in favor of having somebody else put forward a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll put forth a motion for John Mahan for secretary. John does a terrific job with the Heritage Commission.
Oh, Art, you rat.
If you are appointed secretary, please make sure that you put that in the minutes.
I'll second it.
Second by Sean. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? I guess there would be no abstentions. Chair votes in the affirmative. All right, now we have a full slate for the third time.
Congratulations.
Okay. I'd like to open the floor for public comment. Anyone has any kind of comments, ideas, or anything, please come forward.
Ray Bresson, 3 Gary Drive. I thank you for what you folks do, number one. But as I've probably said before, I think it is most important that we look at natural resources in the town of Londonderry and look very closely at what we have. And I think the town has spoken, the citizens have spoken about what they cherish in this town. Some of it's agricultural, some of it's woodland, forest, and so forth. And natural resources are extremely important, and I think you're working on those chapters now, and I hope you take it into full consideration and make it I would say a chapter, but maybe that's a bit too much. But there's a lot to look at, and so thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Ray. Anyone else? All right. Thank you. All right, so next on our agenda, I was very excited and proud of kind of the work that kind of transpired in the last month with our recent, kind of workshops. So I want to kind of go in and have Suzanne facilitate a debriefing of that.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Just to give a big picture overview of the agenda, I'd love to start with a relatively short debrief on the recent workshops. We at Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission got a lot of great input and feedback from the community, and it gave us a lot of grist to work with on developing draft materials. So I'd love to get your impressions on that. Then we'll actually spend most of our time diving into more concrete feedback on some of the draft materials that we shared with you last week to preview. So this was an evening where we tried to emphasize that pre-reading and pre-work would make for a very productive evening. So I'm going to do our best to keep us the conversation moving efficiently. But I do want to give us a moment to reflect, because we found those workshops to be really valuable. As you all know, we had two pretty back-to-back sessions. On November 6th, we had a great turnout for a future land use mapping exercise. And on November 20th, we dug in on some content development to really gather specific information on the 4 remaining chapters that we completed. Oops, this never goes the direction I wanted to. So I have 3 questions for y'all to consider, and I would just love to hear feedback from the folks on the committee. What do you think went well? Were there any unique insights that you gathered from the discussions you had at those events? And are there any lessons learned from the 2 work sessions that we had?
I was impressed by the fact that so many people who don't normally participated. So it makes me believe that they're paying attention. They're just not bodily here. They're probably watching on YouTube or something, which was fabulous.
Yeah. You all did a great job of getting the word out, especially for the mapping workshop, which we
Yes.
said we wanted to really push that one because it was really helpful to have a broad cross-section. So thank you for all the outreach that you did for that.
I thought it was excellent. I think a good turnout, and the input from the people kind of reminded me of doing past master plans and everything, where you really want kind of like a community to discuss things. My only, I think, complaint about it wasn't long enough.
Yeah.
Because you just kind of get rolling along, and then, time to move to the next one. But it was good. I think we got the input that we needed, and it's what I hear around town also.
My philosophy is to leave the people wanting more. You don't want it to go drag on too long. It's better to leave people wanting to leave. Like, I said a lot, but wish I
If
had
the
more
eyes
to
start
say.
moving or they start leaving, then you know it's.
Exactly, exactly.
I love the aspect of the 4 different groups. It's not like they were all in one big group, because I think when you look at the survey results, it says certain things at the top, but I think if you looked at each of the tables, how each table took those results, came up with very different ideas, but I think that was good to capture all of those and get the variety of what's in this community of different lines of thinking, and get that all kind of compounded down into one data set.
Great. Any other remarks?
Well, insights that we're
Yeah.
just doing all 3 of them. I was maybe a little bit surprised at how little people knew about the town. When they were looking at the maps, they had no idea where they were. They couldn't say, oh, that's this development, or they really didn't know the town. And
I think.
Yeah, I
yeah.
would
Go ahead.
agree with that, that I felt that, that even I, even though I kind of knew some places, some places were already had things going on that I was not aware of. And I was grateful that, I had some people that were on conservation that were, at my table, that were informing me about things.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
good learning
I
opportunity.
couldn't make the second one, but the first one, the maps were so small. People really struggle with that. And I was at table number 1 over there, and everybody at my table commented that it was so tiny, they had a hard time really relating to it. So maybe part of the problem, or I think that, people just couldn't tell. It needed to be larger.
Right. Okay.
I think when we all gather together to do this again in about 10 years, I would like to spread out a little bit more. I felt because maybe we got more people than we expected, and we were a little, particularly on the first one, a little crowded around the map.
Yep.
And I had some feedback from a couple of people about difficulty hearing in the room. And maybe just spreading things out a little bit, even if we're in a hall or something, just to give folks a little bit more room to work and to hear everybody, so.
That's a good recommendation, yeah.
I know, past ones we've always had in the high school cafeteria, where it could, we'd have like six round tables. That's where
Yeah.
people could talk easier. And of course, there was some snacks to entice people too.
I feel regretful about not bringing excess Halloween candy, so
Pizza works good.
that's a lesson learned.
You might end up with different dots on the map then.
Pepperonis.
Don't use red.
Well, thanks for giving us an opportunity to reflect a bit. I feel like overall it was successful in that we got the information that we needed to really keep this process moving. So with that in mind, I'd like to turn our attention now to look at the draft future land use map. And we have two other staff here who you might remember who are also at the workshops. And Zach and Cam are going to help us talk through the process for developing the future land use map and then for getting feedback from you tonight. So Zach, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so we took the 4 maps back to our office. I laid them down in my cubicle, and I'm sorry, that's not what happened. We took pictures, and then I took it and geo-rectified it onto the town and literally placed each dot in. If you can go to the next slide. And ended up with a composite. It's a little hard to see there, but that's everybody's dots all together on one. So did that. Also did some heat maps for each dot. Where it's darker, you can see where people put the dots in higher density. Good example is the keep it as is map there on the right. You can definitely see that the town commons, people were pretty clear that they did not want people messing with that. So I hung these up, looked at them for a while, and then tried to start, developing different zones, and played around with that for a while. Then took it back to the rest of the crew. We talked about it, played with it a little bit more, and we have the draft map that we see today.
And just a quick terminology note. This is very different than a zoning map. This is
Yeah.
our vision for future land use. So we're talking about land use areas. It's a little more gestural, broad brush than anything like a zoning map. So anyway, just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, no,
that.
thank you for clarifying that.
So this is what we have as of now, as our initial draft that we're hoping to get feedback on tonight. As you can see, there are several different colors representing different land use area types. And I'm going to have Cam talk us through those in a little bit more detail. I also passed out handouts for each of you. So you have in front of you not just that full land use map, the draft land use map that we see, oh gosh, how did I back it up? That we see here, but we also have the kind of zoomed in version with descriptions of different land use areas. So here are kind of the areas where I think your feedback would be most helpful tonight. I'm about to turn it over to Cam, and he's going to talk us through each of these areas in turn. But as he's doing so, I'd love for you all to think and kind of feel free to mark up and take notes on the sheets that I've given you. What are your thoughts on the land use titles? Is there anything that you might suggest changing? What are your thoughts on the general boundaries that you're seeing on the map? Do you have suggestions for modifying those in any way? And then what are your thoughts on edits to the descriptive bullets? I think that, the way, when we were putting this together, we really envisioned this as an insert between parts 1 and parts 2 of the master plan. It provides a really nice, highly visual takeaway and synopsis of all of the work that's been done. And so we think this is a really key component, and we want to give it the attention it deserves. So if you don't mind, I'm going to pass it over to Cam to talk you through each land use type, and if you can feel free to take notes, we'll have conversation when he gets to the end.
Thank you, Suzanne. So, as Zach mentioned, he made this kind of composite map And then we had all of these notes as well that Zach also used to kind of develop the map, but we had to interpret those, and we tried to do that as best we could, you know, to the intent of people's comments. So the result is this kind of running narrative for each use for the future land use map. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just kind of at a high level talk about them. And like Suzanne said at the end, if you have questions, if you want to suggest changes to the bullets or the actual description, please feel free, and we're open here. So for residential, we have the predominant pattern across Londonderry continues to be low-density residential neighborhoods represented extensively on the map. These areas contain established subdivisions, rural roads, and a mix of lot sizes shaped by topography, natural resources, and historic development patterns.
It's everything yellow that you see right now.
Okay. The next one is the dark gray that you see on the map. We're calling that airport industrial for now. The airport industrial designation encompasses the Gateway Business District and the industrial areas located adjacent to the Manchester-Boston Regional Airport. These areas operate at a significantly larger scale than Londonderry's traditional industrial districts and serve a regional economic function. Now to the lighter gray, which we are calling industrial. The industrial designation identifies Londonderry's traditional industrial districts, which support a diverse mix of light manufacturing, trades, service-oriented industrial operations, and small to mid-scale commercial industrial uses. Village mixed use. On your printout, the background may look a little blue, but it's really the light purple. So it's really kind of at the intersection of 128 and 28 in the north part of town, and then off of Pillsbury Road. And so we're calling this village mixed use, which is village scale mixed use areas on the map identify places where Londonderry can support compact, walkable development that integrates small scale commercial uses and diverse housing types. These areas can serve as local gathering places and neighborhoods serving commercial nodes. The red, or the kind of brick red, we're calling commercial mixed use. These areas identify corridors and nodes where commercial activity is already concentrated and where Londonderry seeks to encourage continued economic development in a coordinated, efficient, and visually cohesive manner. Commercial uses will remain the primary focus in these areas. The areas also accommodate residential uses in limited locations where infrastructure, capacity, access, and surrounding land uses can support mixed-use development that complements existing commercial activity. Intensive mixed use is the orange. That's kind of the what is Woodmont Commons. And so the map designates more intensive mixed use area along the I-93 corridor suited for higher density development and regional scale commercial uses. For town commons, the blue, the town commons designation on the map represents Londonderry's civic and cultural heart, an area that includes municipal facilities, historic resources, and community gathering spaces. And then lastly, conservation. The map identifies significant blocks of permanent and priority conservation land that support Londonderry's natural resources, rural character, and recreation network. These areas include forests, wetlands, riparian corridors, and other sensitive environmental features that provide important ecological functions. Several of these areas also contain long-standing working agricultural landscapes, such as orchards, fields, and farms. So, with that, and hoping that folks got to kind of dig into this a little bit more, you know, look closely at the map and the descriptive bullets. We're all ears right now for thoughts, impressions, suggestions, and I will be kind of taking notes. But also, I believe if you want to write down anything on the map, on the for each kind of page for the use, any notes you want or suggestions, we will take that after the meeting as well.
Yeah, and on that note, if you're planning to jot down anything on the handouts to hand back in, that is fair game. It would be really helpful if you could put your name on the first page. That way, I know you all have perfect handwriting, but if we do need to follow up, we know who to ask. Oh, yeah. Oh, I also have pens. Let me pass these around. Anyone else need a pen?
Thank you.
Good over here?
This is just kind of nitpicky.
Yep, that's fine.
On residential,
Yep.
in the second bullet, it says, support a broader mix of housing types, yada, 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 such as cottages. For some reason, when people hear that word cottages, they freak out, thinking we're talking about tiny homes.
We just propose
And-
right now.
I don't know where that came from.
Okay.
But I don't know what to do about it, because,
Yeah.
cottages is not a tiny home.
Right.
For some
Yeah, I
reason,
think when we say that, you know, when I kind of wrote this up, I was thinking kind of cottage court, which are kind of smaller, single-family detached units.
It's a style.
Yeah. And so, you know, I was thinking of being a little specific here. You know, it's not all encompassing. You know, we could call it, you know, missing middle housing or something. I mean, that's a great suggestion and something maybe we can workshop.
Does cottage court have the same aversion? Or like, do people have, or is it cottages? the
I
specific
think
word?
it's just cottages. I'm not sure cottage court people even have a clue
Even know what that is. They might not have a
is.
picture yet. Okay.
But for some reason, it's
Okay, that's good to know.
universally upsetting to people to
So
hear that.
can I ask why? Like, why do people have an aversion to tiny homes? I don't know, you just,
I don't know. Why do they have aversions to rentals? They have a concept in their head that they have a negative feeling about, and that seems to feed it.
okay. I didn't know if, like, you had talked to people and they had kind of, like, expressed why or anything like that.
No, I mean, like the rentals, they assume that it's gonna be, you know, people that the police are always gonna be in there, you know, people stealing from each other, bad stereotypes. I mean,
If I may suggest a change, maybe we could be very specific and say something like a, you know, small scale detached single family or something like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
The idea being, more diversity, but keeping within the same aesthetics as, you know, the low density single family that exists in this area already.
So I guess for me,
Yep.
saying small scale detached says tiny home to me far
Yeah.
more than cottage does.
Here's a question. What have you, sorry if I don't recall this with the part one of the plan. Did you have a glossary? Because I do think we could have,
Oh,
Yeah.
so we
Yeah.
can keep adding to the glossary.
Yeah, that's true.
Especially when you flag something where, like, people don't necessarily understand what this means. We can find out we can bold it in the text and like point people to a resource where they can learn more about it.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that could help
Yeah.
solve
Yeah.
for confusion.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, that way you're getting people used to the term.
yeah,
Yeah.
And
exactly.
you don't have to keep going back to the definition.
Yeah,
That's great.
I have a question that I'm just unsure of.
Sure.
Somebody said this to me the other day, that in New Hampshire, an accessory dwelling has to be a particular size. Like, it can't be more than something like
900 square feet.
It's
What
so
part?
the,
I think it's like 900 square feet.
the state law says that municipalities now can't regulate ADUs to make it so that the maximum or the minimum, now I don't, it's between 750
Two
and
bedrooms and-
950.
Yeah.
And you can't say that it must be smaller than 950. You are allowed to say it can be a max of 950, but you
Based
can
on the
also
size of
say
the
it can be
house.
Okay,
larger.
but that's as big as it can be.
Let me,
And
let me just
Kelly's gonna
add,
clarify.
so the 750 is the maximum that we can limit it to,
Yeah, thank you, Kelly.
I think is what you're trying to say. So when we're being restrictive, if you're trying to be more restrictive, that's as restrictive as you could be per the law,
Okay.
is 750.
And then the other thing that I heard about accessory dwellings with, other than the size, was that you cannot have an oven in an accessory dwelling.
No.
That's not
That's
correct.
not true. So to be a dwelling,
It's not correct.
It
right,
would
by
be-
definition, you have to have all of the
Okay.
amenities, if you will, that cause it to be a livable unit, a
Yeah,
dwelling.
livable
So
unit.
kitchen, bedroom, living space,
Bathroom.
bathroom, thank you. Otherwise, it's just a bedroom.
Shed.
Or a shed or something that's not a dwelling.
But for the size that they're requiring under state law, it's pretty much a one-bedroom thing.
No.
Not
No.
not
A
necessarily,
two-bedroom
so,
maximum, I believe, by zoning.
so in our zoning ordinance, we have two means, right? You can have attached or detached.
Yep.
And then it's 2 bedrooms, you can
Yep.
have up to.
Okay. But
And, go ahead.
small, though, 950 square feet.
It's
That's-
really not
We
that
actually,
small.
It's
we
not that
actually,
small.
If you went in one that's quite comfortable.
Really?
for the detached, we actually base it off of a percentage
Of the
of
existing
the
house.
primary dwelling.
It's 50%, isn't it, Cal?
I think it's 40%.
40%, yeah. It's spelled out in the zoning ordinance.
Yep,
Okay, all right.
that's Londonderry specific, but yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other notes on land use types that are not residential?
I don't really, don't like the word intensive mixed use.
We struggled
And
with that.
I have to tell you that this is a hot topic in this community, as it is in Wyndham and Merrimack and other places. And I would strongly urge you not to use the word intensive mixed use. I'm just one person here, but everything that's listed there as far as high-density housing, mixed-use development, I mean, that's something that's been a hot button in this community, and it's huge in the surveys. So
What would you term it? How would you term
I
it?
wouldn't call it intensive.
Concentrated?
Do you have a suggestion?
Maybe I don't know, but intensive is not a good word.
Urban?
I would definitely not.
That was the first draft, and
Yeah.
I said
I would definitely
absolutely
not use
not.
urban. Well, you do whatever you want. I would not use urban.
What about downtown? That was another, this is one that I struggled
We all
with
struggled with this
Yes.
one.
finding the, word, to capture it.
And we struggle because of a difference between the village mixed use.
What about
Maybe
dense?
concentrated or something.
Compact.
Concentrated.
Concentrated, dense, something to that
Dense is
effect.
not a good word. Concentrated maybe
Maybe
better.
concentrated
We
then.
could,
But
yeah.
the reason I'm sharing this with you, because you don't live in Londonderry, it's a hot topic in this community. I think anybody here will tell you that. And if you want people to be very upset about this, use intensive.
Well, let me just, so it's clear, the original word that was drafted was urban, and we said that's not gonna work, so
It's not good either.
we're aware of the sensitivity.
Well, I know
but-
you are, because you're the
Yeah, no,
town
I'm just
manager.
saying that we acknowledge this is a sensitive area, so this is why we wanna workshop it out.
Yeah, definitely a good conversation, so.
Concentrated maybe. Or,
We can't leave it just as mixed use?
No, because we already have that.
There's,
We
there's
have-
2
we
other
have-
mixed
It's
use.
slightly distinctive from the other mixed use. So we had the, sorry, I don't know which direction to go. When we- Oh, here we go. So we have commercial, so we have the darker kind of brick red that's primarily commercial. And then we have the village mixed use that's primarily residential. And we really see the orange color as being more concentrated than either of those.
I think concentrated is
That's
a
a
good
good
word.
word.
Just
We're-
use that.
I'm fine with
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Okay, excellent. Sounds like we have
We'll do it.
some nods around the table. I like seeing that. Okay. Other thoughts?
Well, while we're on village mixed use, what's the temperature of saying like resident, because if it is like residential mixed use, would it be clearer to say residential? I guess when I think of village, I think of
So,
So
monopoly.
I think the downside of saying residential mixed use is that, and I live in the northern village mixed use, where it's spelled out here. From my perspective, saying residential mixed use means that it's just a variety of housing options, as opposed to, like, personally, I think we as a town are missing the boat on that area of town. I think that, it was the original, it was where the train came through, that area is, I think there's a lot of potential there to actually turn it into something that could be places you could walk to, you know, that kind of a thing. So I like the term village mixed use. I think I would like to see it turn more into a village style setting than what we have now.
So I heard that during the workshop, and that's why I created this particular area.
Yeah.
Where it gets a little muddled, then we have the area by Woodmont Commons. I didn't really know what to call it. I wanted that to be, it's kind of a different area, because I really wanted to call out the North Londonderry Village
Yeah,
area.
that's like the historical, like, organic,
Yeah.
kind of like, those are old buildings there, you
It
know.
used to be the center, it was created by
Yeah.
when the railroad came through. And it was developed before there was any thought of zoning, so there's certainly clashes with uses that have been up there. But it's, I know one time it was referred to the Londonderry Business District or the Old Village is another term, but it's not the established center of Londonderry. That was actually East Derry.
It was in the old master plan as well for some kind of village, and nothing ever happened. But I do think we're missing an opportunity up there by just not letting anything happen. You know, not coming up with a plan for that area.
Usually some of those folks up there feel they're like separate from the town because there's not the communication between the town and.
And it's much more densely settled and than much of the rest of the town.
So this would be that opportunity to ensure that the future land use priorities line up accordingly, right, Suzanne?
Yeah, exactly. I guess that's a good question, though, is that, because it does seem like there's a really unique sense of identity and possibility around that northern purple patch that we're calling village mixed use. Perhaps, do you feel that there's potential for alignment with the other purple patch that's down by Woodmont Commons, or should that be defined as a?
I think there too, because the other thing about the one up north is that the rail trail runs right through the middle of it. You know, so that's another opportunity that we're just kind of letting slide as well.
I'm thinking we need a brewery at the.
I absolutely agree with you.
The old.
There's already two within a mile and a half of my house. I could go for another one.
A district.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But it is a little different than what you have down there, but, because one is gonna be a kind of a planned
Yeah.
development, and one is more, like I said, organic. But they're both kind of the same,
Yeah.
what we're talking about
Not
doing.
really. The lower purple one that you've got there, that's 100% residential. There's nothing
Yeah,
but
that's the cottage
residential.
court area, right?
It's gonna be rentals and single families, but there's no business or
This is by where the school
retail or anything in that.
Well, no, the plan, that area is of
There's,
Woodmont, and that, on the other, on that side of Pillsbury is, probably gonna be residential.
yeah, there's just,
But
there is a piece of land that doesn't have any development proposed on it that is considered vacant still with no proposed housing on it right now, on that side,
So,
part of the PUD.
but in the original PUD, that was supposed to be have some mixed use, correct?
There was,
But-
there was a little bit, but there seems to be certain objections to it. You know, the only thing I think it was, this is during the development of the Woodmont Master Plan, was like a convenience type store, you know, so people, that area wouldn't have to go running down to 102, they would have it all right there. But,
And we did hear at the workshop a lot of desire for more neighborhood serving uses closer to residential. So I understand like the inclination. I actually think we don't necessarily need to resolve this tonight as two distinctive areas. I think that they both are village mixed use, and perhaps with an additional bullet, we can clarify that the portion to the north is representative of like capturing existing historic village character and building upon that. And then the part near Woodmont is more about creating more of a diversity of village-type uses in a new construction environment.
Has the plan for residential development in that section, has that been approved?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I mean, Technology Hills in that area.
Yeah,
Yeah, point out with,
Technology
oh.
Hills up there,
yeah.
which was,
I just want to point out that the old village, Kelly knows this well, there's some historical structures that aren't on the list or anything, because those people didn't want to be on the list.
Right.
There's White's Tavern is one of them, and then the Ennis Mills where the chimney is.
Right. And
There's some others that are definitely like old Americana.
when, I know that when Technology Hill was going through all of this, and I know some people that live over in that area, and we had a lot of residents from that area that were sort of very nervous about that, and I know that there's been complaints about Old Mammoth Road, which is kind of a straight road, and a lot of traffic goes down that road, a lot of truck traffic goes down that road, and the DPW put up stop signs, almost at every block, there's a stop sign now on Old Mammoth Road, but they whiz right through those stop signs, and it's a problem area, so, you know, I think that we have to be very careful on how we do develop that area, in terms of, you know, just getting residents who have lived there for like really long time.
Yeah.
You know, I think that we want to explain exactly what this is gonna be for them.
Sure.
And in part, that's why it's village mixed use and not commercial mixed use, because I wanted to
Yeah.
make that distinction that, you know, this will be, you know, a local, you know, center, and not, you know, a retail strip.
Okay,
Right.
I like that idea, but the thing that concerns me the most is that, for example, when Woodmont first came in and proposed to us, they had several, what do they call those,
Suarez?
not Suarez.
Suarez, what?
Charettes.
Charettes.
That's it.
Charettes.
There was dancing,
my
there was some
God.
waltzing
Yeah.
going on.
Suarez.
Been a long week.
People wore masks, you know?
Yes, yeah, they had several of them, and I attended a lot of them.
Yeah.
And they showed us photographs and pictures, and this is what we intend to do. They told us, oh, we're gonna bring a lot of restaurants and things like that, which is a big lacking point in Londonderry. And, it hasn't turned out to have any of those. None of those have really been proposed as yet. When we question the developer or the guy that's working on development of that area, he says, well, the restaurants really don't want to come into that area because they want to be seen. So they want to have a place that's out on 102 or someplace where you'll actually see them. And so, you know, you can say whatever you want to put in these areas, which is great, and it sounds lovely, but we have to be sure that we have everything else in place to control what that growth is going to be and what it's going to look like.
I think that, yeah, to pick up on what Martha said, one of the key things, and I wrote this on the cover page where the composite map is really the ability of the road structure and the traffic.
Yeah.
And a lot of these roads, Auburn Road, Old Dairy Road, a lot of these roads that even lead to this town hall, if you go the back way and you don't go on Mammoth, they're tiny, winding, 2-lane roads with no shoulder. You would require giant amounts of money to widen them. It may require acquiring property from people who own that, unless there's an easement there. And I think these kinds of proposed developments, they sound great. Oh, high density mixed use, or you know, what was that term we didn't like? Oh, intensive and this. But it's a huge issue.
Yeah.
The roads cannot support it. It's a hot issue with the projects that are coming before the planning board. They want to put 1,500 homes here, 400 homes there. It's a real issue. And the other thing is the density. The survey showed great concerns about density. When you see things like multi-story and high density, it's going to resonate poorly with the people in this town. The majority of them, not everybody. So these are things to keep in mind as we play, as we play with these pieces of paper, because to put something somewhere and build, Technology Hills built in the middle of an industrial park with one way in, really.
Right.
That's a problem. But it got passed and it's being built.
Yeah.
So these are real issues as we do this.
So,
Martha, getting to your point about Old Mammoth, right? I think doing something like what is here would actually help that, right? Because if you've got storefronts and you've got sidewalks, and I know sidewalk is a 4-letter word in this town, but in certain areas it's useful, right? And you've got pedestrians, and you're going to limit the just naturally people drive slower when you're in an area where there's activity and there's, right now Old Mammoth Road is just a straight shot, and I live on Hall Road, and all those stop signs have put all of the traffic onto Hall Road. So my road is basically a drag strip for that Subaru place that goes by, right? So, but I think if we were to do something like this, you would just have more of a natural people slowing down. Trucks wouldn't want to go through because they'd constantly be.
I'll just mention,
Yeah.
that I was in Concord yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, it's Christmas time, but Main Street in Concord is like really a lot of storefronts,
awesome.
a lot of great stores,
Right.
great restaurants, fabulous. Bumper to bumper traffic, bumper to bumper. It was crazy busy. So, these people have lived in this little quiet part of old Londonderry, and now they're gonna have like everybody, not only from Londonderry, but from other. Look at Jeff
yeah.
looking at
Well, no, I think we're all sharing, like, this is, the evidence, right? That of like why we kind of are talking what we want to do. What I want to ensure that we do is we take this, we look at all of these aspects, and we ensure that it's what you're saying is represented in the future land use priorities. Those are great examples, and I think if we could then take it to that next level of framing it so it's concrete, so we can take that and put it into the plan.
Yep.
Um,
I will say, as one important thing to keep in mind here is that we're not here tonight to critique development that is already on the ground. It's good to understand the challenges, and we heard a lot about the challenges from the survey, from our conversations. We do want to be forward-thinking in our vision. That's the nature of a master plan, is to be thinking ahead. So if there are things that we aren't pleased with in terms of some existing development typologies, our job is to come up with a vision where we're starting to solve for those challenges. And I think that when we talk about village mixed use and the fact that we would have connections to a rail trail, or potentially more pedestrian infrastructure, you're creating an environment where people, even if they do drive, would park once and not be driving to every single destination within that village. So I think that what I'd like to do is make sure we add some type of bullet or clarify our bullet just around the type of the type of transportation access that would be required, or the transportation access management that would be required to support a village center. That we would want more of a park once model where people can they can walk and they can very safely and comfortably move about without having to drive to every destination.
Well, and this is something that's being looked at right now too, because Bob's right. The roads in this town, the small 2-lane roads, don't support what we have. But that's part of what density brings, is you concentrate on certain areas to improve those roads. That way we're not doing the whole town. That way we can keep the look and feel of this town the way it is and the way the residents like, because you have certain areas where you can concentrate and do the roads. Then you don't have to worry about buying, Wiley Hill Road and trying to make it bigger. You've got it in the areas you have it, And then you're not having the traffic go through, because this came up with where we have a center on the north side and a center on the south side. Right now, with all the stuff on 102, everybody's driving through up north to get through that, and all these roads that don't really support it. You cut down on some of that traffic, and you can concentrate on some of those transportation options in those areas and help grow this the right way rather than some of what was done.
And I know that this isn't our area, but all I'm trying to say is that I want to have like other zoning regs and
Yes,
other
yes.
ordinances in place that back this up, like,
Totally.
so that when people
Totally.
come before the planning board, we could say, no, that doesn't meet our ordinance, or that doesn't meet our
Exactly.
zoning. And so I don't know what that is now, but I wanna make sure that when this is adopted, that's in place.
Yeah, that's basically a call to action to update regulations to achieve the vision.
Yes,
Which I
'cause-
think it came across pretty clearly in the land use section that you already have worked on, and it's something that I keep trying to, in the chapters I've worked on for tonight, I really tried to echo back to that notion of like, we do want to make sure that development regulations are updated to support the vision.
Yeah, because the future land use map is supposed to inform zoning, zoning ordinances, because it itself is not a legal document.
Right,
No.
And not enforceable.
right. But it is giving it something to build upon. It's the foundation for working on those other, the other codes, development regulations.
So I'm hearing it. We're looking at village mixed use. I'm gonna build on that fourth bullet, where the idea was, it says apply design standards that preserve character, human scale architecture. That was kind of getting to this idea of it's small scale, but as you'll see in other future land use priorities and others, like the commercial access management is something we understand Londonderry struggles with. And so I think we will include that in here as well. Some sort of notion to that. Does that make sense to folks?
Yes.
Great. Thanks, Cam. Great. Okay,
Just want to throw one more thing on. Looking at the town commons section, you've got our municipal buildings lumped in with what I would call the historic district. As a matter of fact, a number of them resolve in the heritage district. Morrison House, the Grange, the Common, and the Town Forest are all part of the historic district. And I would suggest to you that maybe these should be treated as two separate areas, because people go to and work with the government buildings, this building, the fire department, the library, the schools on the other side of the street, as government functions. You go there because it's a function of government. And in terms of the needs there, we're probably not gonna do a heck of a lot more building on those facilities, although we've got something going on this now, but they need to be maintained. There's preservation that has to be done on the historic side. And so the needs are a little different, and I would suggest you've got two separate areas.
okay.
That historic side, you also might consider extending that over to something like Max, because that was seen by folks not as just farmland or agricultural, but as part of the heritage of the town, even though it's not in the formal heritage historic district.
So right now, Max is currently there is,
It's captured as a blue,
it's captured as conservation.
and it's captured as conservation. Okay.
Because working lands are tied in as well with that.
I would love, do other folks would like to weigh in on whether we should actually kind of carve out like a civic area and a more historic focus?
I think that would give some clarity to the master plan, because there's the forest, the common, the Grange, Morrison House Museum, Historical Society is all in the historic district. That's all we have for historic districts. So.
Is there a map of the historic district online?
Yes.
No, well,
Oh,
it's not a contiguous area, so it's a list of properties.
Okay.
It's in the zoning
yeah, I
ordinance.
think,
There's 6 properties.
We had it in the town report.
Well, I guess no, 5.
Okay, So we could, if there's consensus that we kind of do, the kind of split those two areas, that is something we can do, and we can use the
list, yeah.
list to draw, to kind of start to draw that different boundary. If that, we're happy to do that if there's
Yeah, probably,
consensus among the
yeah,
community.
noted as a historic district. so.
It's also on our GIS layer, that
Okay.
layer.
Actual farms.
Okay.
But I just wanted you to know it's not a contiguous,
Okay, well, I'll,
but we could get you the layer if that's easier.
We might not
okay.
compartmentalize them.
Yeah, so if we're on these, like, even if you have a house or whatever that's not in it, I'll probably just pull it in anyway, just because we're talking about general areas, not
Right.
really.
I mean, that's one thing we try to emphasize. You might see some cases where a land use type is aligned with a property line, but for the most part, we are not trying to carve out anything resembling a zoning code. We're trying to give a gestural representation of what we want to see happen in different parts of the community. So, it's something that we can take a look at.
Yeah, the town commons area was created basically because there was near unanimous consensus. The people said, leave it alone, leave it as it is.
That was like a unifying
There was like one person was like, I want,
characteristic.
regional, regional like industry or there, and then like everybody else was like, no.
Absolutely not.
Like, yeah, like so. And so I just said, okay, this the center of the town, make it one thing, but I can split it out.
The one issue we might have a problem if we do split it up, though, this comes up at planning board a lot, where people get confused what is historic technically and what's not historic. So then they're like, well, you're developing into a historic property, but there's a list of 6 properties. And so if it looks like all of that is a historic district, then it might cause confusion more on that front, especially as we're looking at this in a zoning context.
Okay, so you think
So that's a
it would be
risk.
helpful to separate them out, just from the standpoint of further.
It might not. I mean, if you're gonna have a separate category, then definitely you have to have like a separate color there, and I wouldn't blend in other things. I would call out exactly what's historic and not. If you don't have a separate, I mean, because to me, when I look at town commons, this just means don't touch.
Yeah.
This is the don't
basically.
touch part, and I think that fits with historic. It also fits with the town center and the government buildings. It's all a hands off.
I don't think we carve out, I don't think we need to carve out.
No, 'cause
I don't think we need to carve out either, because I just think that area, there's not much area
No.
to develop there. I mean, there's a school that's mixed in with that, area. There's, part of the orchards mixed into that area. I don't think there's gonna be other things that are gonna come up that'll be developed.
I think that a good model, because I'm working with them right now, a good model is the town of Wyndham. Wyndham has 6 historic districts. They're clearly delineated. One is their town center where they have their town hall and a bunch of other older buildings. One of them goes back to 1780 something. If we designate, I know if we're going to be serious about preserving the history, I'm not talking about orchard specifically or a house, but the resources. We need to do a better job of identifying these districts and creating them as historical districts, which may or may not contain registered buildings, okay? They could just be contributing members to that district. Those who know the requirements know what I'm talking about. So that's the way to do it. And I think in this town, we've not done a great job of that. But if you want to look at Wyndham, that's a good example. You can go to their website. You can see they're all listed there. They have the buildings listed. Some of them aren't historical register. 2 of them in the town hall district, but town center district, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So could I
Yeah, please.
just throw another idea out there, that, we're not creating districts here. and-
Right, no, I understand.
Yeah, no, and your comment is great. But I do just want to say, like, this idea of the town commons kind of encompasses both historic uses and the civic life that people, do their civic business in Londonderry Inn, and, having this as 1 or 2, we can figure it out. But I don't think it necessarily will change much on a future land use map, as long as we're clear about what uses should, the vision of the uses are in this area.
And there's a it's come up a couple times. I've heard people say it. And there's a difference between historic and old, right?
Yes.
Like I'm old. I'm not historic. You know, just because something is 100 years old doesn't necessarily mean it's got to be preserved, and you know, and so.
It's gonna have some historic.
Yeah, exactly. So
background
I
of
think
it
that's
itself.
a risk that we run because we don't
Yeah.
have a historic district. If we
Yeah.
start outlining these, then that kind of nails these down as that can't change.
Right, and I don't want us to overstep our bounds with this exercise and start to perceive to be plotting out historic districts on this particular future land use map. Here's what I'd like to
Which speaks
propose,
to the historic
based upon
district
what I'm hearing
resources.
from the conversation, is that I think we perhaps just need to provide a little more articulation in the description and in the future land use priorities. We kind of talk about preserving historic structures, but it's blended in with other verbiage. And I think if we call out, this is a particular priority area for exploring opportunities to reinforce historic character and preserve historic sites and/or pursue historic district expansion or whatever, we can finesse the language a little bit to emphasize the historic qualities much more.
I think, just to add, I do think if you add in that term historic district, it covers, I think, what you were getting at. Because we have it established there already with the district in those particular properties. So I think emphasizing that we don't want that to change. It sounds like that could be done through what you were just describing as an additional bullet, or changing the first one a little bit.
I'll be honest with you, I would strongly advocate for the separation of the municipal from the historic. You know, the town council meeting on Monday, there was a discussion about potentially, I don't think it'll end up there, but potentially knocking down Morrison House. That was discussed at that meeting. And I think we have to, I would suggest that we should consider putting up barriers around that whole area to preserve what I think came out clearly in all of the sessions that I attended, a desire to preserve those hallmarks of the history of this town. And I think we have to clearly delineate that from, hey, let's slap on an attachment to town hall to house the school board, okay? Whereas we have to think, I think, much strongly, much deeper about doing that kind of stuff in that historic area.
Yeah, and that's the reason, John, that's the only reason I brought up, because one of the things today is historic resources, and that's why I brought that up. I'm not saying because a house is 90 years old, you make it historic. That's not what we're saying here. So,
I think it's definitely important. I view the historic district and really the town commons as, we may not think of it, and we probably won't, but what we're doing here is we're making history. So eventually this building's going to be a historic building because, the 2025, 26 master plan charted out of the course for the next 10 years, and that's going to be studied for the next 200 years for the future planning board, right?
It's going to be the guiding document.
But
Wait till we get to the next one.
But what I'm saying is that, preserving that history is really important, so the folks that are sitting in our seats in the future, see that, and that's where I'm kind of like.
I have an idea, based upon another future land use map Zach and I worked on, is that we provide, we leave this as the town commons, we provide some type of hashing overlay of where we want to target historic preservation activities. Thoughts on that?
It might be too deep a detail.
I also think that we don't need to solve this. I mean, we're already hitting on 7 o'clock. There's a lot to cover tonight, and we don't have to
Yeah.
solve everything tonight. I think that what we can do is kind of take this conversation back to the office, ruminate on it a little bit, work on a couple of visualizations, and perhaps share that around for the next iteration. What are your thoughts, Zach? You look distressed.
No, well, I'm just. This is one issue that there doesn't seem to be consensus on. It seems to be pretty split 50-50 pretty well on. But yes, we don't have to decide tonight. We don't figure it out tonight.
I think we can.
I've made
alternatives.
the note and I'll play around with it a little bit
Yep.
and see what we can get.
And we are at 7, and I want to be mindful of everyone's time this evening. Are there any, so here's how I'd like to slice it. One thing we can do right now, we haven't talked a lot about the industrial areas. We haven't talked about commercial or conservation. It could be because you all felt pretty confident that those are heading in the right direction. I think that probably your attention was most drawn to the things where you felt like we needed to do some finessing. We could take a moment now and give you some time to kind of mark up anything else you want to share. Or we could give you homework and you can take this map home and do additional markup and bring it to the office on Monday. What are your thoughts? I don't know how much preparation folks came to the table with tonight and how much more time you might want to take to dig in on this.
Yeah,
I mean,
I look at it from several iterations, and each time I would come up with something a little different.
Yeah,
And,
you're always gonna
you
come
know,
up with a new
it's,
comment.
it's something that you're gonna, if allowed, played with all the time to make it quote-unquote perfect, but
And-
there's no such thing as perfection, so.
That's a really good point. I also will mention that this is just one step on our journey, right? We'll be coming back together in January. We will have a new iteration to share with you a week prior to the January meeting. So what I'd like to do, if you feel comfortable, is go ahead and kind of keep moving through the agenda.
Yeah.
If during the course of tonight, you want to mark something on this map and hand it to us before we walk out the door, we're happy to kind of take a simple note under advisement as we move into the next iteration of the plan. If you need to work over the weekend and you want to drop a couple notes at Kelly's office on Monday, we can understand that as a solution too. But I do think that
yeah, that's a good plan.
I do, yeah, so I think these are two directions we can go, and I also believe that, like, for the most part, we've had the luxury of kind of talking about some more nuance here. One thing I'm happy about is that the big picture takeaway that you all shared wasn't like, these are all wrong. It seems like these are primarily heading in the right direction, and we just need to do a little bit of finessing, and the conversation we've had tonight is gonna help us get there, so I appreciate that. Okay, so let's do that. We're happy to take any written comments back with us tonight. We're also happy to pick them up from the office early next week. So if you do want to take some more time with it, feel free to keep weighing in.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, I am gonna click us ahead now. So we have, I would like us to try to stick to roughly to an 8 o'clock close. It's okay if we go a little bit over.
That'd be great.
But I'd like to move towards getting feedback on the draft chapter outlines. And just to do a little bit of reflection on how we got here, that November 20th workshop that we held with the 4 different workshop groups talking about 4 different topics and really digging in and kind of doing a little bit of a coding exercise about which strategic concepts felt like the best fit for Londonderry, that was extraordinarily helpful for us. We took all of the flip charts home, all of the posters home with the voting sticky dots, and we basically used that as a jumping off point for constructing the chapters. We actually used a number of different inputs to create the chapter outlines. So not just the content development workshop from the 20th, that was a really foundational piece, but we also went back to the community surveys and looked at, what were some of the highlights from that really referenced each of the topics of those 4 chapters. We looked at general data analysis, right? There's always US Census data to pull, some New Hampshire Granite data, especially for things around natural resources. We also looked at what you all had posted on the town website, right? We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We wanted to see what resources were already posted by Town of Londonderry boards and committees that we could bring into this master plan. And then, of course, we reflected on just general discussions and conversations that we are aware of over the course of this process. So a lot of different thoughts went into this. I will underscore the fact that these are chapter outlines. I prefer, at this point in the process, not to try to give you anything resembling a finished product, because we're just not there yet. What I want tonight is to get some consensus from this group that we have the right building blocks in place to create the draft. I'll be really busy over the course of late December, early January, working on that draft. And tonight, our feedback is really about making sure that we're headed in the right direction. So the outlines, you'll see, sometimes they have an intro paragraph or a note that says, we're gonna do an intro paragraph that touches upon these issues, but it's very high level placeholder. For each of the chapters, there's a section on data and trends. Then there's a section on community insights that really digs in deeper to what we heard from the workshop and the survey. And then they close with proposed strategies. So when we look for feedback tonight, I'm looking for big picture, high level considerations. So these are the prompts that I'd asked Kelly to send out when she shared these materials last week. What's missing? Are there any critical content gaps that we definitely need to address? That's really important for us to know tonight. What's incorrect or unclear? Maybe there's a factual error. Maybe there's some outdated information. Please let us know. Tonight's the night that will really be helpful to get that feedback from you. What's most important? You might say, like, this is something that we really have a chance to emphasize. We want to pull this out. We want to give it some more visual oomph in the layout of the document because it's this important. That's also really helpful for us to come away with tonight. And then I would say a key priority for this evening is to start to have some consensus around the strategy recommendations. So that's the table that concludes each chapter, and we'll talk through those in detail tonight, and I also put those on a handout for you. This is another example of something where please feel free to mark that up and hand that to us at the end of the night, and we will take that into account along with the other conversation that we've had this evening. I will make a note here. You see our friend Shakespeare. Tonight we really do want to avoid wordsmithing, formatting. I know some of these maps and images are too small to read anything. I know there's going to be some grammatical errors. Tonight's about framing the house. It's not about picking out the furniture and the art you want to have on the walls. So I want to try to keep us at a high level. And with that, what I'm going to do is kind of keep an eye on my clock and give us about 10, 15 minutes per topic to have some conversation. And then, of course, we can always, again, have our time over the weekend if you want to reflect on these further. So for historic and cultural resources, I just wanted to give a broad brush. I wanted to start with this one because we gave this topic much less attention in the survey, so I wanted to make sure we had some time to focus on it this evening. Within that chapter outline, we talk about a number of different things, some highlights from the data and trends section. We discuss the Heritage and Historic District Commission. We talk about the historic properties map that you all have posted. We talk about the Apple Way Scenic and Cultural Byway. We also talk about cultural groups and event highlights for the community. And then under community insights, I really tried to focus on the feedback we received around managing historic assets. What are some of the opportunities at hand in town? What are some of the preservation tools, particularly voluntary preservation tools, that people felt most confident advancing? There was a lot of emphasis on the potential for greater community engagement and volunteerism. And then I remember especially from the workshop night, a lot of focus on the potential to identify a historic site that could become a cultural hub and host activities year round. So those were some of the insights that came out of that conversation. And then I'm just gonna put the proposed strategies up on the screen. And I wanna give us some time to chat about what your impressions were of the outline and the strategies. The other thing I didn't put on the feedback list, but I always will welcome, if there's something that is not important and you feel it's okay to strike from the content, I'm never sad about deleting. Like, I always appreciate a good editor. Yes, John?
Quick factual, on page 2, we still have 2 Litchfield Road in the historic district, and that's been struck. That's not part of the historic.
Okay, oh, that's new, that's hot off the presses.
Yes, it is.
As of like last week, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's history now, so.
Yeah.
But that's one of those things that you would have caught, not you, when you do your Shakespearean.
Exactly, no, that's a factual error that we would like to make sure we get
Yeah,
corrected.
but that's
Thank you.
only, like in the last several weeks. so.
Sounds good. So let's focus on historic and cultural resources and ensure that we're providing those.
So when I look at H4, I don't know how the town effectively does that, and I'm also worried about the specific organizations, because sometimes organizations change, their role changes in the community, other organizations take their place or end up doing a better job of it. And it's hard for a town government to be worried about supporting membership growth, publicity, and funding of a separate organization from itself. It just seems, this would be hard to actually implement in practice.
What number is that?
H4.
And that kind of touches upon a bigger picture philosophical question that maybe we can just raise for the room. And granted, I know that Sylvia was kind of leading the first half of this project, and I came in a bit later. In some communities, a master plan is seen as a vision where many different actors will be contributing to the implementation. So just because the town isn't going to actively underpin the work of these different organizations, other folks might. So I wanted to, is that,
No, that's a fair.
that's a fair
statement.
assessment? Okay.
Who would the other folks be? I'm just trying to think of, maybe I'm framing this in the wrong way.
You mean particularly for these committees and that are listed, or just generally?
Yeah, well, when she says other folks would do the, like
Like if the town-
strengthening local
Yeah,
organizations.
I guess I'm reading this, there's always opportunity to kind of rephrase who the actor is. And so maybe strengthen, this doesn't, we're not clear about who would be doing it. But I think that you have a really strong contingent of folks who showed up to talk about historic and cultural resources. There was a lot of enthusiasm at the table. I don't know who is representative of the commission, who's representative of these other organizations, but
So what
I
if,
think what you're getting
Yeah.
at is that it may not be the Arts Council, organizationally, but it might be a group of people that are similar to that.
right,
Maybe
so
not
it could be
formalized
like
in
a
that manner.
strengthen local, historical and cultural
yeah,
groups,
we
just,
could be much more general,
yeah,
for
let's,
sure.
yeah.
More of a community
yeah.
emphasis than a
More of a
government.
community emphasis, yeah.
Yeah, I think that kind of dovetails a bit in with the volunteerism. Because one of the problems, recent history, is getting people to volunteer. 30 years ago was no problem whatsoever. That was,
Could we put that in the beginning? Because I think that really outlines it well. Let's
Yeah.
strengthen
Yeah.
encourage volunteerism to strengthen local organization. Like
Yep.
that answers the who. It gives us a better, and I think that's something we want in our master plan. I've not seen it. Oh, actually, there is volunteerism on the line H6,
but we could-
but I think it fits
we can
with
help
this
them
one too.
together.
Yeah.
Also, it's really helpful, that's part of the reason why I didn't get too invested in intro paragraphs, because I knew that the conversations we had tonight would actually help flag for me what feels like it requires emphasis. And it's something that I picked up on in the workshop. It sounds like it's something that you all are underlining tonight in this conversation, is that notion of the cultural volunteerism and getting people really involved in community groups is important.
But we do have a Heritage Historic District Commission, which is part of the town's boards. So that is a part of our governance, and they can make recommendations to the town council or whatever. So
But we also have, don't we also have Historic Society that is not a government?
no, I understand, but that's the issue here, is that
Right.
we're listing a bunch of people that really are
So that's why kind of.
are not going to be in a position to really make, I'm not saying this correctly, make decisions. I mean, they can do whatever they want, and they can volunteer to do something, but they're not really a part of the body politic of this town. So as such, they have no real say politically in what's done with these structures
It
or
could be a
areas.
support mechanism, just.
No, no,
and I'm throwing it out there,
yeah.
not like it's.
I agree with you, but I'm saying there has to be, the body politic is the Heritage Historic District, commission, I should say, and that's, should be listed in H4.
But suppose the solution to the
don't list
meeting
anything.
house, the Morrison Meeting House, was to sell it to someone and then develop a group, the Friends of the Morrison Meeting House, that would renovate, restore.
Yeah, I'm not arguing with you. I agree with you. I'm just saying.
Here's what I'll just
There's
jump
other
in.
properties in town that could fall in that same.
Suzanne?
One thing that you can see, most of these proposed strategies are written very generally. I tried to model
Yeah.
the style that was used in part one. I also am recognizing the fact that from conversations with Jeff and others, and from I think when we met in October, we talked about the planning board really drilling down into the specifics around implementation for each of these chapters. So it's not our job tonight to make those assignments. But what we want to do is have the strategies in place so that when the planning board, that we feel like is heading in the right direction, so that when the planning board meets to talk about implementation, they can say, okay, H4 is really important. We want you have so many words that I've messed it up. Heritage and Historic District Commission, did I get it right? Okay. Heritage and Historic District Commission to own that strategy and move that forward, right? But that's not something we need to determine tonight. What I want to know tonight is whether strengthening local cultural and historic organizations is something that we can get behind.
Yeah, I think combined with H6, I
Okay,
think
great.
that helps.
That's helpful.
And taking the specifics, because like as Bob said, like those ones aren't exactly the ones with the ability as much as a different organization would be.
Okay.
One thing I'd like to put out there and get people's opinions on is something about, you've got that map of the historic, like, buildings, and they're all over town, right? That's why we don't really have a historic district, because it's everywhere. There's a house from the 1700s next to a house from 1985. And I live in a house that was built in 1870. And what about, like, doing something to identify and work with people who own historic properties to, like you talk about reuse of historic sites and things like that, but we don't do anything in this town, at least I have never been aware of it, where we actually talk to or work with the people who own these structures about, what would you be interested in, and because, you actually own this place, what would you be interested in doing? We have a heritage commission, that really their focus is looking at new development and making sure it fits with the town character. But there really isn't anything in the town to, like, identify or work with these actual old properties.
Yeah,
I don't
actually,
know. I'm putting it out to you guys to see.
Yeah, 'cause-
They don't have a budget to
Yeah,
do
because
anything.
actually you need to go look at the 2007 task force that was put together by the town council at that time, and did a lot of research into that and dealing with people who own old historic houses. And one of the things that I think you have it here is to encourage the continued use of it. Because from that, we found that people that own the old houses loved the history, they loved the house, and it's a passion of their life to restore it. And
It is so much freaking work, you need to
Yes,
really
it
want to
is.
live.
So I think what you guys are saying is definitely captured in H1, develop robust programs and incentives to encourage the preservation of historic buildings. And I
covered.
like
You're right,
it.
Jeff.
I think I like it.
Actually, I
But-
think
but Jeff,
you
I
could
think that-
leave
I'm sorry.
a,
Hold on, guys.
oh,
There's a step before that, though, because we really haven't, and Art, correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't updated our survey of historic buildings in town since.
since 2006, 2007.
So that would be,
And one of the criteria is a building that we would look at, and an old building isn't necessarily historic, I agree with that. But
Yes.
one of the things we look at is a building is 100 years or more older. In 20 years approximately, we've had buildings that have aged into that group now that we don't have captured on our lists.
Right.
so I would be looking at, so
I
from,
think we-
with
we-
that example, H1, develop the robust programs and incentives to encourage the preservation of historic buildings. The outcome of that would be, okay, what are the steps that we need to do and who's gonna own it? So if this entire thing is owned by the Historic Commission, I'm not saying it is or it isn't, then the Historic Commission will work with us in the town to identify and paint it on our strategic plan that we have to, do an inventory, do a recent inventory, kind of get it structured, because this, if, we're not going to be solving the implementation of this right here, but we want to get that strategy together so we're able to have those outcomes rolled up.
Well, you know what, the one thing I would suggest to you is that And I actually wrote in here, update the 2006 inventory of historic buildings. But the facts of the matter are that, like everything historic in our beloved town here, we have zero funding
Right.
to do any of this now.
So that would
It
be
is a
definitely one of
zero.
those outcomes that we would need to, find ways to increase funding. And I know this is stuff, and I'm the young guy on this board, and I know this is stuff that you guys have all worked on for decades, but what I'm not seeing as a strategy professional is kind of like, what are the, like, yeah, great, we have, stuff that's written down on a plan, but we don't have the, kind of the objectives. How are we gonna meet that strategy? Because right now, and this is what I like about the town plan, the town manager's plan of a strategic plan, is to actually put it on paper on what we need to do to get to that. And this is kind of, and I agree with you, and I think updating that registry is absolutely critical. And I wouldn't necessarily put it as a strategy, but I would put it as a key dependency for H1.
We could just, in H1, encourage the identification and preservation of historic buildings.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah, I think
that's
that's well.
That's actually, I like
I
that.
like that. I think it needs to be a little more granular than it is now. But other than that, I agree with you, Mr. Chair. I think, it takes a lot of work to do it. Identifying what's important about its structure, whether it just that's 100 years old, and there's dozens of these, hundreds of these properties. It's a long process, and you have to have the money to do it. And homeowners in general, business owners might be not interested in doing it because they feel it might impact their ability to sell that property. So we could be here all night talking about it. I know this topic very well, and it's very thorny in a lot of ways.
So is there any of these, because I know we wanted to spend 10 minutes on each section.
Yep.
And this was the small one. Was there any other strategies that are completely missing that that we feel is important? If there are, I think we should probably just move on, but you can provide the feedback to Suzanne, through the methods that she mentioned.
Yeah, and, I think that what we are gonna use our best judgment. Cam's taking some careful notes on his computer, I'm taking some notes on my notebook here. I'm also gonna be thoughtful about, the places where we are we are kind of hitting like hooks about like, well, how detailed do we need to get? I think that once we have some time to kind of absorb this conversation and really think through how this fits into the chapter as a whole, sometimes like the act of writing helps things become much more clear. So I'm confident that we'll be able to distill some takeaways from tonight, and we're gonna have a new iteration to show you when we meet together in January. I also feel like, again, feeling pretty positive that we've seen some like little nits and minor changes we can make, maybe combining some strategies, maybe drawing one out into two. But for the most part, this seems like we're heading in the right direction, so
Agreed.
I feel good about that. Okay, so with that note, let's jump into natural resources. We know that's really important to many, many folks in this community. There's also a lot of fantastic data. So we were able to, in the data and trends section, provide information on change in land cover over time. We pulled the green infrastructure map that you all have on your website. We have sections on farmland resources, water resources, the recreation plan that the town has completed, and wildlife resources. So there's a lot of good material to work with to really understand the lay of the land and what are all of the natural resources that folks care about. In community insights, we know this came out loud and clear as a major priority in the survey, in the workshops. It's very significant. So we talk about conservation tools, resource protection priorities. We know water came out as a really, really strong priority for folks. Recreation, there was some great conversation about how important it is to ensure and kind of define what are the public access points. So you're giving people a chance to appreciate conservation lands and also kind of control access so that they're better cared for. Once again, this notion of volunteerism, community education, stewardship was another issue that was underscored in the community insights. And then like almost every chapter, the notion that we need to make sure our development regulations are really taking us to that outcome that we're seeking in terms of our conservation of natural resources. So I'm jumping ahead now to the 7 proposed strategies that we pulled for the natural resources chapter. I'll give you time to reflect on those and offer feedback.
Are we reflecting now, or are we putting our hands up
Oh,
the top?
you can talk. I'm ready.
So I like N1. I mean, it kind of goes back to not having a, my reluctance to put a registry list of the historic properties and the strategies, but that's really kind of the same thing there. So I'd want to kind of see the reasons. Well, I think it's important to kind of communicate the reasons why we want to conserve, why we want to ensure open, kind of open space, so we can then have those projects kind of roll up to it. Other than that, I really don't have any suggestions on where to go, but that's kind of what I'm noodling at the moment.
I can give a little bit of background on the thinking for N1. So it's definitely something that I heard come out at workshops. Yeah, from some of the material that we pulled from the workshops, I don't think we asked a question this specific in the survey, so it didn't necessarily get reflection in the survey, but through the conversation we had with the natural resources table, and also I think with some of the future land use mapping, there are folks who really care about this issue who noted that there's a kind of, it's a resource gap for the community.
Yeah.
I will say is because we work with so many communities in the greater Manchester region, we do recognize, I kind of noticed that resource gap because it's one of the first things I looked for when I was pulling data for this chapter. I was like, oh, let's check out the NRI.
Nope.
Londonderry doesn't have one. And I do feel that it's just from like my own professional kind of planning perspective, the master plan cannot substitute for having a really detailed natural resources inventory / conservation plan that is calling out the focus areas and providing strategic attention for like how are we going to actually address the unique preservation needs in different parts of the community. So that's just, it's part of it is like what I heard around conversation at the table. Part of it is like from my own planning experience, that is an important resource that a master plan can't substitute.
I agree with that.
This was
Does it?
specifically noted on both of the posters or whatever when we were taking the notes at
No,
this
I
session.
totally, I'm just, should this be put on, and I guess it would be put on the town's strategic plan as something to kind of do? I mean, I'm fine. I guess I'm fine with it then.
I agree. I think it's good. It does bring up, and I agree with what you said. Then it comes into play. The town has, been preserving and purchasing some land over time, but it becomes a funding situation, just like the historic,
Right.
Survey is. You got to pay money to civil engineers to do that work. It costs a bunch of money. And then if you want to continue acquiring property, which we have done, I mean, Kelly will tell you, whatever, you have to have the money. So Jeff, Mr. Chair, I guess I agree with you that beyond, it has to have a mechanism.
Yep.
Now, no, we're not here to talk about mechanisms, but we can say all the flowery stuff we want in this document, but if it's not implementable, it's just a bunch of words on paper, right?
But
That was a good
I
point.
just wanted to emphasize something Jeff keeps referencing. So keeps mentioning the strategic plan. We're all aware of it, but I think it's important to emphasize that point of the strategic plan and then the implementation piece of the master plan. The intent, as we've discussed at this committee, is to have kind of that working concurrently. And that's not just with the transportation chapter, for example. The goal is for it all to work together, and I think timing-wise, we're aligned to do that, which is why, to your point, Rob, we're not getting into the action items per se at this level right now, But that is the end goal, to Jeff's point again, is to have the master plan implementation action items work concurrently with the strategic plan.
Yep.
So that it's actually able to be accomplished, because like you all keep stating, a lot of this is dependent on funding, and a master plan implementation item isn't as strong of a document to emphasize that need for funding, whereas the strategic plan can do that. So I just want to make sure everyone kind of was on the same page with why the chairman here keeps referencing that.
And just an FYI, where it says to clarify priority conservation focus areas, on that, for compiling that green infrastructure map, we used a scoring system to determine conservation values, and that is available as a
Oh, great.
subset of that map.
Great.
Yeah, the Delphi system, I think.
Yeah,
We
I
were
don't know what
looking
it's
into
called,
it,
I
yeah.
just scored by, soil types,
Yeah.
wildlife, water
Great.
availability, that kind of thing. So that information is available.
Yeah, I personally think that this is one of the most important things, as far as I'm concerned. We know for a fact right now that a lot of the water in this town is contaminated. We have to know about what's in the water, what's in the groundwater, how is that done? I think there is a big push to work on that, but I think the why is like clear to me, why we have to preserve it. It's not just land, it's water,
for
it's
sure.
a lot of things.
So definitely, I think what Martha was saying, take those notes back. It's not just land, it's, it's water, it's that type of stuff. That's kind of where I want to really kind of make sure that it's
Yep.
as clear as possible on the why. Because I totally agree with that, and I totally agree with that, and is very much needed. And I probably underestimated that it's probably just not like a Eagle Scout project where you're just kind of going out and making a natural resource inventory. There's probably some cost involved with that as well. So there's a lot of different kind of structures that would
Well, and
occur in
I
there.
think you also have to,
mention water specifically.
Oh, yeah.
For this town.
Oh, for sure.
but even to expand your definition of natural resource, because I think we think of water and land, but, in the future, sand is actually going to be a commodity, and we're finding that in places because sand is the basis of concrete, and concrete is the basis of development. So you've got places that are rich in sand that are being excavated and in residential neighborhoods.
I think that what this is telling me, that it's really important that intro paragraph for natural resources needs to be really explicit about defining and enumerating what we mean by natural resources.
Yeah.
So making sure that definition gets really hammered in right up top. Okay, that's helpful. Anything else on this one?
Ma'am, I think N5 is maybe a little weak and perhaps a little misdirected in terms of, it talks about protecting water quality. I think in this town, many of us are living with essentially poisoned water now. And an education effort really has to be pointed at recover
Right,
clean
okay.
water rather than protect.
That's super helpful.
And that's going to involve some interesting things over the next few years. We've got some water lines that are being laid down in sections of town now, and we need programs to encourage people to hook into those when they become available, if they're in an impacted area. We've got some discussions going on right now, I think tomorrow, as a matter of fact, in Concord about funding for other water projects that we have to do in town, and these are all aimed at not protecting what we have,
But
recovering
recovering
what we've
from,
lost.
yeah, that's super helpful. Yeah, I agree that we can be much stronger in our language.
I'm new here, obviously, but, you know, talking about water, you know, it's not just, like, do we want to mention something about taking more of a regional? Because the reason why a lot of our water is polluted is because of a town across the river, you know, that we don't even border, right? So like, is it, and I don't want to say it's because of the town, obviously, they're bearing the brunt of it, but it's because of a business in that town. And so do we want to mention something about focusing on like a regional, because, you know, nature doesn't care if where the town.
They don't care where the town boundary is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's outside the purview of this or not.
I mean, as a regional planning commission, we're always pro regional engagement, so I think that that's a very worthwhile note.
Because basically with the PFAS, it was a town that pretty much pushed the DES into doing something. So I think it's, you know, there's some very proactive people, and previous town councils have really worked very hard between our both federal and state legislative delegation to implement.
Yeah.
And also, you know, the financing part of it also for try to achieve clean, potable drinking water.
Yep. Yeah, so I think that you're right, like regional and potentially state actors will be involved in the resolution.
But I mean, the reality is that as the town grows rapidly, which it is, you're not looking at wells anymore, and those are maybe contaminated with PFAS. You're looking at the need for large quantities of water. So Manchester Waterworks is expanding into Derry, expanding into my neighborhood off of Old Derry and Auburn. We have another water utility in town, which is, well, serves the town on one other side, which is much smaller utility. That water is going to have to come from a large water utility. It's not going to come from wells. And with the proposed number of homes that are going to be built potentially in the thousands, it's not don't get me wrong, it's not a well water thing. That I'm sorry, those who have PFAS wells, but that's not the future. You're looking at large quantities and volumes of water to support the growth. You're not going to do that with a bunch of wells.
So it sounds
Right.
like, I do feel like this is a chapter where there's a lot of emphasis and potential for another strategy or two around water. One around resolution and providing access to residents who are dealing with contaminated water, and what the strategy is for that, and one around being forward thinking. I did make a note, I do want to kind of think about aligning again with development regulations and targeting development towards areas that are going to be served by water utilities. So I think that we can definitely do a little finessing and bring much more attention to water resource concerns. Okay. So we're at 7:38. We got 2 more sections. So I'm gonna say anything else is homework for this one. I'm gonna jump over to transportation. So under data and trends, we touch upon traffic count data, because SNHPC is in charge of doing traffic counts all over our region, so we were able to pull that very easily. Regional transportation planning, a little bit of background on how that works for our region and what goes into the state's 10-year plan that is being finessed right now. The Gasset hearing happened last night, and there might be a few minor changes, but hopefully we'll have a final 10-year plan before we need to have a final draft of this. We talk about safety, and we provide a high injury map because we know that safety is a major concern. We talk about the pedestrian network, the rail trail, and transit, with specific attention to CART services, which is on-demand service for folks who need rides. In terms of community insights, people care a lot about traffic issues. Road conditions are something that we talked about, especially with the DPW director, and the strategy for maintaining road conditions over time. Safety for non-drivers is a major issue. Speeding concerns, a major issue. And then the notion of providing more bicycle and pedestrian connectivity and taking advantage of transit opportunities so that non-drivers have viable transportation options. And so that we use that to create the chapter and to inform these strategies that I have up on the screen. And feel free to jump in whenever you have a note.
I would just say on T6, this came up quite a bit in the last year. I'll give you an example. I live less than a mile from the rail trail, okay? I can't walk there, and I rode my bike a few times. I took my life in my own hands.
Yeah.
You have to have, there's other rail trails in Massachusetts, in northern Mass, where they have hubs or spurs that connect neighborhoods. That should be a tremendously high priority. So I think
Yep.
in T6, so I don't know if you verbalize that enough, but there have to be ways for people to walk and or ride a bike
Yep.
from these neighborhoods to reach the rail trail, which is a tremendous amenity and is now being connected all the way to Darien and to Salem. I ride it all the time on my bike. 30 miles all the way to Salem, you know? But you can't do that safely. You have to drive to some point, park a car, get your bike out, even if you live a mile away. Thank you. I just want to say
No,
that.
I think that's excellent, and we will make sure that we hit that, hammer that point in more clearly, because that's something we heard a lot.
T2, I would add traffic calming measures.
Traffic, like
Traffic.
doing
Yeah, it's-
additional traffic counting?
Yes,
Okay.
it's highly effective for controlling speed. That's making roads narrower,
Calming.
more
I'm sorry.
curvy, so people have to
Yep.
drive, and people normally, if the road narrows, or especially intersections, they'll slow down.
So I think that's covered though in T4.
E4?
Because
E4?
T2, if we are trying to reduce congestion, slowing traffic down in certain areas where we're trying to reduce congestion might conflict with that. Because I think
yeah.
the speeds are covered in one, and then the congestion aspect of it are covered in the other.
There's a medium anyway, because you really want to maintain a flow.
Yeah.
So things flow along, so it's when people sit at a stop sign or a red light for what they consider a long time, when problems start to happen.
What does multimodal mean to you?
So I think it's more of an art than a science.
I don't know,
Yes.
multimodal.
Yeah,
We-
I
we
think,
can
I hear you, traffic
change
calming is
that.
something,
No, but I don't know what it means to you.
Oh, it means other forms of transportation.
like when you talk about being able to ride your bike or walk to the rail trail, or when we talk about a village
little
center
plan
where you
speed.
can park once.
What strategy are we on?
I was asking about what the word multimodal means to
Me
these
too.
folks,
Okay.
because it can mean anything. It could mean a transit line, it could mean
Right.
railway car, it could mean anything. So I'm just trying to,
E-bike.
it could mean anything, right?
It's a catch-all for
It's a catch-all.
different modes.
I'm fine with it, I just,
Okay.
Yeah.
We can use a different phrase too. It's very like planner speak, and like
It would be
we
in-
try to avoid that as much as we can. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that you brought that up, because we just write it down because it comes natural. But
And we can either retain it and add to the glossary
Yeah.
and make sure it's defined in the chapter, or we can talk about walking, biking, transit, more, just simplify. I mean, people might understand micromobility is also included, or, anyway, we can work on eliminating our planner speak, so thank you for making note.
I had the same street connectivity standards. What are we talking about there?
Cam,
yeah, I
like
think.
you're good at just explaining.
Excuse me, I'm kind of losing my voice. Which one is
The
this?
street
T1.
T1. This would be within, let's say, your subdivision regulations, where, when appropriate or possible, regulating a connection to an existing street network, so another road, or to the rail trail or something. Some towns do this. And we can be more specific about this, if this is like way too vague.
Are we talking about trying to pull out from a street merge onto a street now that's become more difficult because of the amount of traffic? Is that that kind of an intersection thing?
Yeah,
Is that-
it's another way of dealing with access management, where, you could have, I'm trying to think of an example here in Londonderry, but I can't, but So, you know,
Fewer
Can I
cul-de-sacs?
talk to this
yeah,
a little bit?
if there's a lot of kind of one-way streets, and so you have folks, you know, a lot of folks from the developments all coming out, you know, in different areas that may be close together, you could have these street connectivity standards, which could help to kind of mitigate those high impact points.
So that would only, I'm sorry, Martha, that would only apply to new developments, because I think we have large problems right now in existing areas where
Correct.
we have, give you Gilchrist and Peabody. That intersection there is a disaster, okay? 5 o'clock, you'd swear you were in New York.
Yeah, so this would be for new, you know, road construction. I think what you're talking about as far as safety improvements to intersections or things is different. It is kind of a separate transportation planning tool.
Is that caught here on one of your?
That would be
I
the
thi- I think
congestion
that this
T2, I think.
basically talks about what Londonderry did, as we were being built out, big time in the late 70s, 80s, right, Art? Around that time when we had a lot of build out, the people, you know, moved here with little kids and they wanted these safe neighborhoods. So we have many, many streets that are cul-de-sacs. You drive down, you get to the end, there's a loop around. It could connect to something and to another street to let people out. So, for example, the neighborhood that I live in now, all cul-de-sacs practically, so everything comes down my road, because my road's a connecting road. And I think that Londonderry, you know, sort of didn't think about that when, or they, you know, or the builders thought, you know, that at the time, what they wanted was these really safe little areas with these cul-de-sacs that would be enclosed areas, and we have a million of them.
I do think, you know, that's a great example, and this is something we could even provide a very simple visualization for within the chapter, so that it has more resonance for folks, because that's exactly what we're talking about when all traffic is getting funneled into a single place, and it just is creating more and more congestion. Whereas when you have more connectivity, there are options for how to move within and how to get in and out of different neighborhoods and commercial developments.
That's correct.
So you're actually, you're dissipating the traffic. So we could do a simple, very simple, like kind of line drawing visualization to make that clear.
Well, and not just that, but cul-de-sacs isolate neighborhoods, you know the people in your cul-de-sac area, but you're not necessarily interacting with anybody else in
right.
the
And
town.
that's what people wanted. They wanted their own little neighborhood so
And
the
they
kids could
still,
play in the
they
street.
kind of still do, because when you talk about like cutting through, you know, to another neighborhood, to even put a bike path through, people say, oh, no, I don't want that. You
Right,
know,
well,
they're afraid.
And that's why this is really important for us to think about in integrating that into development standards, right? This is not, I think a lot of developers are habituated to say, oh, people just want cul-de-sacs, they don't want that connectivity. And so that's an example of where you want to look at what can the town do to start to specify the desired outcome that we'd like to see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Any
what would-
any other?
Yeah, I was gonna say, what would create some of the most worst planning board meetings is when a developer came in with a subdivision to add it to one with a cul-de-sac, and you look at the plan, it says temporary cul-de-sac, and those people are really upset. They do not want their neighborhood disturbed.
Right, yeah. I mean, too bad. You gotta
Yeah,
get there somehow.
yeah. I mean, we did have some connectivity, but it's not to
No,
create a flow of,
right, we didn't create a flow at all.
All right.
Any other comments on transportation?
Let's go to
Yep.
economic development.
Okay, let's jump to economic development. All right, for this chapter, the data and trends section, we provided data on largest employers, industry growth projections, wages and affordability. We did not provide detail yet, but we think it would be really helpful to provide some descriptive text about the distinctive major business areas in town. And we do have a call out on the TIF district. Infrastructure needs and how important and that is to be in lockstep with economic development desires. And then we also took a very high level look at tax assessment data to see what proportion of taxes are coming from commercial uses versus other uses in town. Under community insights, there's a lot of emphasis around making sure economic development is appropriately targeted to certain portions of the community where we have existing infrastructure. So that notion of aligning infrastructure with future development is something we heard loud and clear from the community. People have a lot of support for small business, especially kind of local identity, entrepreneurial, neighborhood serving needs. There's an interest in streamlined permitting and embracing agricultural identity and looking at agritourism opportunities. And then there are kind of some general pragmatic considerations around the importance of regional collaboration, taking advantage of economic development groups like the Regional Economic Development Corporation and all of the financing resources and advisory resources that they have available, and also reflecting on what are the workforce development needs that Londonderry could really help fill gaps for. And then I'm going to pop these strategies up here for you all to provide feedback on.
I'll go because I was cheating. I was already on
Reading
this.
ahead.
I think number E1 is critical. We just talked that to death, so I'm not going to dwell on it. But we're no longer a town that's going to survive on wells and septics. I mean, the people are on it, but that's not the future, right? So that infrastructure, you got to pay for it. So impact fees are critical. We need to start that again. It's a big discussion in this community, in this town. And then on E5, this is my last comment, is we're rapidly eliminating our farmland and our orchards at a rapid pace. And I think that, you know, we could say what we say on E5, and I think it's a great example. Tom Estee, who owns Estee's, the farm, is a good friend of mine, but it's rapidly going away. So that's more into the land use zoning. If somebody sells their property to a developer, can we really stop that? I never was one to say things that we can't really do, because the prior master plan was a lot of unicorns and rainbows that didn't get done. And I think it's got to be realistic. But I support E5 fully. That's all I have. Thank you.
Support it, but yeah, you recognize there's some potential implementation.
Well, I mean, it's a reality.
Yeah.
Well, there's also some challenges to the whole agritourism. A lot of these places that you'd expect agritourism have conservation easements on their property, and those conservation easements don't allow agritourism. And
Right.
indirectly don't allow it because the definition of agritourism has been,
Yeah.
finessed along the years. And when their conservation easement was put in effect, agritourism wasn't even a thing.
Yes, that's a really
So-
good point.
What is agritourism?
Having weddings
Apple
on your
picking.
farm,
Oh, weddings on.
that kind of thing.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
The pumpkin, the
essentially-
apple.
more than
Max
weddings, but yeah.
But that was an example.
Max Apples is
A
a
destination.
massive
Yeah.
agritourism center. Like, you go down to Boston and there are billboards about coming up to
Yep.
see Max
Yeah,
Apples.
try driving down Mammoth Road in
On
September.
a nice fall day. it's
On
just the
E2,
work of Max. But it's a good
All of our
example.
orchards are like that, but,
Right.
you know, in terms of businesses, I mean, Max doesn't wanna having weddings and everything there. I mean,
That was just an
So-
example.
so,
of
right,
saying
so
it's a
if-
non-farming function on a farm.
It's,
Yeah.
it's essentially,
Oh.
there's legislation that was passed whatever years ago that allows farms, which are typically zoned either just agricultural or in our instance, mostly agricultural residential, so our lowest use, lowest density. It allows them, per certain criteria, to have a business of sorts that's profitable, right? Whereas typically you wouldn't be allowed to do that because you're solely zoned
Next to the store.
to
you know,
be
an ice
an
cream stand.
agricultural use,
Okay.
right? So it's allowing them to essentially
There now.
profit more.
Well, they're restricted
course
to
they
a
do.
certain percentage of their
Yeah,
income.
there's a
can be.
litany of criteria in the law that
Okay.
goes through it, but that's the gist, that's the intent.
Okay.
on E2, the word financing, could we swap that to revenue generation mechanisms?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I like that.
Yeah.
It sounds much
I like
better.
that.
I like that.
E2.
Revenue generating.
Love generating revenue. That sounds great.
Does that take TIF districts out of that
Yeah, I don't,
brackets in the parentheses? I don't think
Well,
it's a
this was
revenue
generate income.
correct. It's, I wouldn't call it a revenue generator, or, you're taking the new or redevelopment incremental increase in the property tax and
Maybe
using it to fund.
Maybe innovative financial mechanisms,
Yeah.
because financing makes it seem like you're giving out loans,
The revenue
right?
generating is really good.
How about revenue generating and financial?
I think,
And then
yeah,
we can,
both.
Yeah.
we can be all encompassing.
Yeah, I like
So
that.
instead of financing, revenue generating, is that what we're saying?
We'll do revenue generating and financial mechanisms.
Again, I'm new to this, so I don't know if this discussion ever took place or whatnot, but, was there ever a discussion about seeking to change our industrial mix in the town away from warehouses? Was there ever a discussion? Because, I mean, the 18-wheelers are destroying, are tearing up our roads, and they're the cause of a lot of the traffic, especially in the northern and around the. So I
Yeah.
maybe way late to even bring this up. I don't know. I just didn't know. I don't know if that was ever a
Are
discussion.
you asking to change where it's currently zoned, like that?
No, no,
type
no.
of
I'm just wondering if
What the future.
What the
yeah,
future
like,
discussion
because, I
looks like?
mean, you see, the planning board, every other site plan is a warehouse. And that brings in 18-wheelers, and
More frontage, yeah.
they're going down, through truck roads and all this stuff, so I didn't know if that was ever a discussion. If it's too late for it, no worries at all. I don't know if that ever came up.
That's one of the problems. We're a transportation nexus. You get the airport, you get the highway system. So that's where they want to locate, is where the population is.
That's right.
I mean, the
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, I understand why the warehouses are here.
You know why they're
I absolutely understand why the warehouses are here, but like, looking to maybe mix it in a little bit with more of the L3, more of the, more of an office.
Jason, why don't you, I like where you're going, noodle it a little bit, and then let's provide that feedback, because I think you do have some kind of good, shots there. I mean, we've been at this for about 18 months now, or 10 years, I don't know. So we've had a lot of conversations, and I can't give you a good answer. How we.
No worries.
It hasn't come out strongly, but it's also like, the surveys elicit information that you ask about often, right? And there wasn't a lot of open-ended questions where people talked about concerns around freight traffic but I do think that there's something there, and I would be curious to hear that idea played out further. Okay. Well, we're coming up on 8:00. Any other strong feelings about the proposed strategies right now? Again, you all can continue to hold the torch of homework. You can hand me papers tonight with your name on it. You can drop things off to Kelly by close of business on Monday, and we will make sure any additional notes, commentary, kind of gets thrown into the churn as I'm working on these chapters over the course of the next couple of weeks.
I would just say one last, I'm sorry, Martha, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just gonna say, the last thing, E7, I mean, I wasn't gonna bring it up, but this constant mention of workforce housing, the reality is that we're southern New Hampshire. And if you go over to the industrial park on Pettingill, if you go there, New Balance, it's mostly mass plates. So there's not a ton of workforce housing. We're going out of, and this came up in a prior meeting, Mr. Chair. Do you remember talking about how it was with you or your predecessor that people are driving out of Londonderry to go to work? I go to Manchester, okay, but I don't know where everybody else goes.
I drive in here for it.
Right there, you drive what?
I drive here for it.
There you go. Well, I think you live
Well,
upstairs.
Some may say that.
pretty much, right? But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that the workforce housing comes up over and over and over and over again. It's a buzzword, okay? I'm in the business, I understand that. But I'm challenging it somewhat because
Where do you see workforce housing?
it's on E7.
Yeah.
And I'm not against leaving it there. I'm just saying that there's not a ton of people that are working in New Balance or at the airport or in the warehouses. They're coming from other places. Would they be in this town doing that in the future? Beats the out of me. But I'm just saying it's used a lot. But
I will say, coming from the Regional Planning Commission perspective, We are constantly bombarded with challenges around what to do about housing. It's an issue here, it's an issue everywhere in the state, everywhere in the country. And
Right.
something that we've
It's
heard from
market-driven.
certain larger employers is that, and I can't specify any group in Londonderry, but it's happening in Manchester, and it's probably a matter of time, where employers are saying they cannot attract and retain the workers they need.
And this says, because I agree, workforce housing needs to be something that's not in here. That's why I was like, oh, where is that? We need
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get.
yeah.
But workforce demands, I think, is a different thing.
Yeah.
It's not just housing. It's to address the needs of the workforce, of having the employment so they can sustain it, to having it so we can have restaurants here. If we can't sustain that, we can't have that. But it's not just housing, because workforce housing to me means the legislative term of so much percentage of income equals this.
They're separated, those words are separated in the
Singular
sentence, but you
limited
guys honed in on the intent. But I like where you're headed with that. Could you work on like finessing something around workforce needs that or just like articulating that further, and maybe that's something we can integrate
Yeah.
and clarify.
I have
Yes.
My question is that when we complete this process, which after the next reiteration, we'll have another discussion about it, and then we're gonna combine the chapters, correct? And then, once we get like this finished product of a master plan, before it goes out from us, are we gonna have a public meeting here or no?
So that's something you know what, guess what topic we're on now? Timeline and next steps. So this is the perfect time to talk about it. So let's look at what we've accomplished to date since our regroup in October. So we had a great regroup meeting. We had 2 really helpful, really like idea-generating work sessions that got us to where we are today. Tonight, we looked at the draft chapters in development, and I think we got some fantastic feedback from you all that's going to inform the next iteration. Our goal is to present a final draft to you on January 15th.
Wow.
And at that point in time, depending on how we feel about it, and I'll talk to Kelly more about the mechanisms of how this lines up with other work that's happening with the planning board and, with the town, we would, at that point in time, look at our calendar for what's a public comment period, when do we want to have this on the agenda for the planning board, and are we ready to recommend planning board adoption? So I'm not going to ask us to figure that out at the 11th hour tonight, but that's part of our conversation over the next few weeks, and we'll have some more clarity the next time we meet.
Yeah, but I think to answer your question, so the intention is to have a public comment period, have a hearing or more, depending on what the discussion is in January and where we're at, and figuring out how that, like Suzanne was highlighting, how that aligns with the overall end timeframe, if you will.
Okay.
But yes,
So-
the intent
so
is
the
to have public
will be
input.
invited to view this master plan at,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah,
Before
absolutely.
it gets
Yeah.
the final stamp by the town council.
So the planning board has final stamp, so they'll hold a hearing regardless, but the planning board may want to have multiple hearings. I don't know the answer to that yet, but I think January will give us a better idea of timing-wise, where we're at and what that end process looks like.
And when we are ready to do public comment period, that's again where we're gonna call upon this group to do your amazing outreach and
Yeah.
let people know that this is the moment.
Yeah.
This is now available, please take a look at this, and please share your comments.
And once this goes through public comment, goes to planning board, is adopted by planning board, does it then go to town council? No. No.
No.
Planning board's the
Okay.
last stop.
Planning board
Planning
is
board's
the authority.
Okay. They better let us speak.
Why? I mean, like, what do you mean?
Because sometimes they don't have
What
any
I
public
would-
comment at planning.
Well,
Whenever
no,
we-
Gonna be
that's
a
not.
hearing.
So
that's-
let me
that's-
just, I'll just make sure this is so very clear. So if it's scheduled for a public hearing, which it's required per the statute
Right.
for formal adoption, it's a public hearing, you'll be allowed to speak.
Yes, and I will strongly encourage those of you all who all have been intimately involved with developing this to show up to voice your support. It will be very helpful, because I think that it's also your opportunity to take credit for all the good work that you put in.
Thank you. Just, is there any quick comments from the public before we close out?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Sean. Do I have a second? Second by Martha. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all. Happy holidays, by the way.